Well, 2015 has come to a close, and that means another top 10 movies list. After so many good movies were made in 2014, I thought there was no way 2015 could possibly top it. And for the first 6 months of the year, I thought I was right. But, lo and behold, Oscar season came around and blew me away. While movies this year didn't quite reach the level of, say, The Grand Budapest Hotel, films in general were much better than last year. I can easily say that nearly all of the movies on this list were better than movies on last year's list, but then again, I saw many more movies in 2015 than in 2014. Fair warning though, there were some films I never got a chance to see this year, whether it be because they weren't widely released until early 2016, or because I just never saw them in general. But I did see more movies this year than ever before, so this list will still be filled with great films. Now, before I finally get to the list, I want to lay out some ground rules. Films in this list were judged by all of these qualities, and above all, my personal enjoyment. If two movies were really close, I defaulted to which movie I enjoyed seeing more. So, without further ado, let's get going. Number 10. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. It's kinda funny that this is number 10, and The Fault in Our Stars was number 10 last year, since they're both about a girl with cancer and her interactions with people around her. But this movie was, in my opinion, much better, both technically and enjoyment-wise. The movie follows Greg Gaines, exceptionally played by Thomas Mann. Greg is an awkward senior in high school who barely scrapes by, essentially learning how to be casual friends with anybody in any social group, making himself an identityless drifter whose only real friend is his so-called co-worker named Earl. Greg and Earl make films together that parody actual movies. This little inclusion in the movie was fantastic, as they are both funny and quirky, and really capture the essence of this film. Early on, Greg is forced by his mom to hang out with a girl named Rachel, the dying girl the movie is named for. After a rocky start, the two, along with Earl, form a close relationship, with the tone of the movie being set by sarcastic comments, awkward camera work, and of course, Greg and Earl's films.
Hi Rachel, I'm really sorry you have cancer.
That's exactly what I'm talking about!
So if this was a touching romantic story, our eyes would meet, and suddenly we would be furiously making out with the fire of 1,000 suns. But this isn't a touching romantic story. Anyway.
Yep.
One thing that set this movie apart from others was its cinematography. Months after seeing it, I can still clearly remember this 2-minute-long moving shot that takes the audience around Greg's house and upstairs to his room, as he and his mom argue about Greg hanging out with Rachel. This movie had great casting, a great script, and turned a semi-familiar plotline into something that felt both original and authentic. The characters were extremely unique, with two of my favorites being Earl and Rachel's mom. Both of them were hilarious, and the casting for them was perfect. One thing that set this film back though, was that it felt like it was trying too hard to be a Sundance film, and some aspects of it felt like the movie was trying too hard to be like something Wes Anderson would make. But, if you'd like the perks of being a wallflower, and other movies just like it, this is the movie for you. Number 9. The Little Prince. You know movies this year were good when a gem like The Little Prince is number 9. This animated movie is an adaptation of the classic book of the same title. It adds to the original tale by starting off with the story of a little girl who lives in a world where the only thing kids are supposed to want is to grow up and be essential.
The hour of the day of the week of the month of the year of your life.
The world of the little girl feels very dystopian and is very satisfying to see. You almost get the feeling that every character besides the main cast are brainwashed, or are robots, since they all follow a sort of program that makes them look down on anything different or fun. The Little Prince story is introduced when the little girl meets a peculiar old man named the Aviator, who captures her attention with his strange house and a broken down plane he keeps trying to fly. Despite her best efforts, the little girl is too fascinated in the Aviator and his story to stay away. So as they become friends, we get the story of the Little Prince, piece by piece, and the story goes on from there. One of the best things about this movie is how visually satisfying it is. The animation of the little girl's world is stunning, with the tone set by the contrast between the black and grays of the rest of the world and the remnants of a colorful old world in the Aviator's house. But even better than that, the story of the Little Prince is solely stop motion, and it was done in such a breathtaking fashion. The choices for voice actors were great, as was most of the script. In my mind, the movie is split into thirds, with the middle third being the best. The movie would have gotten a higher place on this list, but the final third felt a little bit forced and insincere. I got the feeling like they were trying too hard not to have the ending well expected, and instead we were left with something that was good, but could have been a lot better. With that being said, it's still a fantastic film, and if you're a fan of animated movies or have read the book, you'll love it just as much as me.
You're gonna make a wonderful grown-up.
And now on to number 8, The Martian. I know, another film where we're trying to get Matt Damon back. I walked into the theater thinking I knew what was going to happen. Based on the ads I'd seen, I knew that Matt Damon played an astronaut on Mars, who somehow got stuck there all by himself. But what I didn't know was how crazy of a journey I was in for. The Martian retools the classic man versus nature story in a way that feels new and exciting all over again. As everyone on Earth tries to figure out what the heck is going on Mars, Damon's character Mark Watney does everything in his power to survive. What really drives this film, besides the amazing visuals and how real all of the science feels, because most of it is real, is how fleshed out every character is. We get to know Mark Watney's character through his video logs, which he hopes NASA eventually finds so they know what happens to him if he were to die. The Martian did a great job at making his death actually seem like a real possibility. Throughout Watney's struggles, we get to know the other astronauts, and people that work for NASA on Earth too, and you get so invested in this story that you want to cheer every time they get a small victory. This movie had an amazing set that made you feel like you were actually there on another planet. When Watney steps outside onto the Martian surface, the music and the camera work make you believe that this environment can and will kill him. Other times the music is so upbeat and fun that you almost forget where you are, and I really love that they did this. At times I felt myself holding my breath in anticipation and fear, and other times I felt myself laughing. And if that's not the mark of a powerful movie, I don't know what is. The acting was phenomenal, and the pacing was great as well. At the end of the journey, the payoff was satisfying too, making this one heck of a memorable film. Number 7, The Big Short. It was only a matter of time before someone made a movie about the 2007 to 2008 financial crisis. It was one of the biggest unforeseen economic disasters ever. What most of us don't know, however, is the story of the people that saw it coming. The Big Short begins in 2005 and ends when all hell breaks loose and the housing bubble bursts in 2008. It starts out with an eccentric hedge fund manager played by Christian Bale, who discovers that there is a housing bubble in the US. He realizes that he can effectively bet against the housing market by creating something called a credit default swap. But this was during a time when everyone was confident in the housing market. So when he goes to the big banks to buy credit default swaps in 2005, bank execs laugh in his face and happily take his money while being completely oblivious to the truth. The rest of the story unfolds as other groups find out that Christian Bale's character Michael Burry is right about the housing bubble, and come to understand just how big the impending financial disaster will be. This movie deals with some pretty dense material, but the film describes it in a really unique way. Every once in a while there's a pause in the story, and attractive celebrities explain difficult financial concepts in a way that's really easy to understand, while somehow managing not to talk down to the audience. This addition to the movie pairs with a masterful balance of 3 main storylines to give The Big Short incredible pacing. The characters are well developed and are played spectacularly by A-list actors, showing us how well they can handle serious roles. Although the main characters stood to profit from the housing bubble's burst, the film showed us exactly what the cost of this was, and handled the characters' reactions to it extremely well. Although I already knew the scale of the impending financial disaster, the actors' performances and the writing choice to include a few regular people really sold me to the idea that no one saw the housing bubble's burst coming. Yet the movie had a light tone most of the time, and only went serious when it had to, making The Big Short one of the most enjoyable films of the year.
How can the banks let this happen?
It's fueled by stupidity.
But that's not stupidity, that's fraud.
Tell me the difference between stupid and illegal, and I'll have my wife's brother arrested.
Number 6, Inside Out. No movie tore at my heartstrings more than this one. Inside Out is, at its core, the story of how a young girl named Riley deals with changes in her life. But instead of seeing from the outside how she reacts and adapts to the situation, we get an inside view of the inner workings of her mind during a big move from her beloved hometown in Minnesota to California. In fact, most of the movie takes place in Riley's head, where there exists a sort of headquarters where we meet the personifications of 5 basic human emotions: joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger. Every day, these 5 emotions influence Riley's actions, helping her to create memories which are collected in the form of colored orbs based on which emotion Riley feels while making that memory. Joy essentially runs the show, taking pride in the fact that most of Riley's memory orbs are gold, the color of joy. More importantly, there are 5 core memory orbs in the headquarters, which each represent a different aspect of Riley's personality. But when Riley's family moves to California, everything is thrown into chaos, and sadness begins to seemingly ruin everything by touching Riley's core memories. What follows is one of the most touching stories in recent memory, illuminated by incredible animation and a creative story. There are so many heartfelt moments which are juxtaposed with clever jokes and fascinating elements of the story, such as the Dream Theater where all of Riley's dreams are made. This was one of the most visually interesting films of the year, with so many colors that help establish the tone of the movie and captivate the audience. The voice acting was great as well, with Amy Poehler and Phyllis Smith working so well off each other as joy and sadness. While some movies have already done the concept of tiny people controlling a person's thoughts and actions, Inside Out did it so much better. It had an interesting and compelling plot from the first minute to the last, and delivered a beautiful message that completely satisfied viewers of all ages going through changes in their lives. The movie's basis in psychology gives it a layer of credibility that very few movies of the genre have. This, combined with every other element of the movie, make it my favorite animated film of the year and one of Pixar's greatest movies ever. This is the end of part 1 of my top 10 favorite movies of 2015 list. If you want to see more, click here for part 2.